Hello and welcome to today's Hip Historian event. I am Brenda Holt with the Arizona State Office of AARP. We are the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live. In the month of February, we will focus on Black History Month. When you are a part of a community, it's inspiring to see those who go above and beyond, not only to make it feel like home, but make it thrive. AARP believes the efforts of one person or one community can truly make an impact, but we combine our efforts for the greater good, we thrive together. We honor community leaders dedicated to coming together to transform, uplift, and educate communities. Visit us at aarp.org/Black Community to learn more. Thank you again, and with that, I'll turn it over to Marshall.
Folks, welcome to the show. Get ready to meet your host for the night, Arizona's very own hip historian himself, Marshall Shore.
Well, good evening, and I want to welcome you all to Arizona History Happy Hour. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy you can be here on such a special evening. So, my name is Marshall, and I will be your host this evening. So, just sit right back, relax, have some fun, as that's just what we're getting ready to do with Arizona history. Now, I know some of you are probably watching we've got Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn. So there's all different kinds of ways to actually watch the show. So happy you can be here. So welcome everybody. And February 9th. Oh my gosh, what a weekend we're getting ready for right here in Arizona. Lots of interesting things going on. So February 9th here in Arizona. What I thought was interesting is that after last week with Clotie, it was interesting. I didn't realize that just a few days later, so on February 9th in 1953, was when the decision was handed down about Carver High School and segregation. It was legally ended back in 1953 today. And we had talked about Hazel B. Daniels, the first African-American here in Arizona to pass the Arizona bar examination. And he was part of that case. And so there you go. A little bit of Arizona history right here today. It is also Giving Hearts Day, which is a day where people are encouraged to give from the heart, to show compassion and help those that are in need. Now, it is also National Develop Alternative Vices Day, when people are encouraged to replace vices that might not be so healthy with ones that might be less harmful. So, maybe one of your replacements could be the fact that today is also Pizza Day. Now, I think it's hard to imagine that before World War II, pizza was not really that well known outside of Italy, when now it's all over the place, and including right here in the Valley of the Sun, where we are considered to be one of the top pizza countries, top places for pizza in the country. You might also want to develop a vice for chocolate. As we get ready to go into Valentine's Day, it is Chocolate Day, because we all know what's coming up in just a few days. Lots of chocolate will be handed out. Now, I think it's kind of funny because a lot of people are like, hey, giving out chocolate because I want the relationship to be sweet. But we all know the best chocolate is that bitter chocolate. So, but you don't want a relationship to go like the way your chocolate, which would be bitter. Not a good relationship there. Now, it is also National Read in a Bathtub Day. Now, as a former librarian, I would not suggest this, but what a great way to get warm, comfortable, and just cozy with a book and relax. Maybe like some libraries have actually installed a tub where you can just climb in and read. So that way your books can't get wet. But you do however you need to celebrate. You go right ahead and do just that. So what can you expect from tonight? Well, tonight's a little special. We have not just, well, we do have trivia and we have guests. We have multiple guests. Oh my gosh. So we also do a little bit of music history as well as From the Vault, which is something that you might drive by every day that actually has a connection to a bowl game. But more on that and my background in just a little bit, as well as, of course, we have a beverage. And we have so many guests on. It was so much fun taking a look and going back and looking at prior episodes and just seeing how many amazing stories, people, places that we've talked about. So if this is your first time watching, you might wonder, who is that man and why is he on my screen? Well, I got here a little over 23 years ago. I moved here from Brooklyn. I was working in a beautiful Carnegie building, but traded it all for, some of the country is just dealing with weather right now that I moved here for, whether it be cold, wind, snow, because you don't have to shovel sunshine, as the saying goes. But I was working in a library in South Phoenix where there was a rich oral tradition of the community. And that really got me looking at Arizona through stories and affected everything that I'm doing. We also promptly moved into a beautiful 1956 ranch house that is pretty much original and is pretty much a time capsule. All that original cabinetry tile throughout the house is still there. As soon as we got here, we kept hearing about how there was no history, but realized that wasn't true quickly. Every time I would go somewhere, I kept running across so many amazing people, places, and stories. And I'm called the Hip Historian. And so that means we get to play a lot with Arizona history. In fact, last night, I was at a really cool event, Origins, which was an NFL project where they highlighted 4 indigenous local artists. And so this is, and the green screen doesn't like yellow. I guess there's too much green in that yellow. But anyways, so yeah, so this is, there we go. So there I have my little NFL patch on. And so this was done by Group Manor. They're known more for shoes and other things. And so they also designed a jacket with this great little, you got the swallow with then the shoes hanging off of it. As well as doing a lot with Local Buzz. You can download that app onto your phone and check out what's going on around town. As well as Scottsdale Public Library has the Rip Woods exhibit up until the end of March. He is a local artist, educator. And so it's a collection of not just his art, but also former students as well. We also have coming up in just a little over a week is a private home tour that's going to be really cool with Willow Home Tours. So the main tour is on Sunday. We are doing a little VIP extravaganza on Saturday night. As well as we have our LGBTQ Storytime podcast going up. As well as in just a couple of weeks, we are going to be doing hats and high tea at the Pioneer Memorial Park. And so I know there are still tickets left. You can go to their website, azhiscemeteries.org, and you can find out more information about that event. And thank you, Ariana, about the jacket. So that's actually what I got last night at the Origins event. And so I guess now I'm hipster as well. As well as in March, we have Arizona Unzipped coming up, and that's going to be a hoot of a good time. So, I love hearing from you all. Thank you all so much for finding the chat. You can always throw things out through email, Instagram, website, because, y'all have some better ideas than I do. And of course, it would not be happy hour without a beverage. And so for tonight, because of Valentine's Day, we decided that we were going to do Arizona. It also kind of matches my jacket. So it's nice and shiny and has lots of colors. So this is a wine made in Wilcox, Arizona, because we do have an amazing wine industry growing right here. And so this has a little bit of cocoa powder, raspberries, ripe strawberries, all kinds of good things. Now it's more of a sweet dessert wine. So very nice for a Valentine's Day. So now we're going to talk about Little Arizona, which is a little town. And so we are going to talk about Valentine, Arizona, which is right along Route 66. And, you know, you would think Valentine, maybe it was named for Valentine's Day, Statehood Day, but no. It is named for Robert G. Valentine, U.S. Commissioner for Indian Affairs from 1908 to 1910. So it was named for him. Now, the town is only around 40 people, not very big at all. Now, this town was very popular for Route 66 tourists. It's right off just between Hackberry. And because of Valentine, it was a famous place where you could have mail sent, or people could stop by the post office and get things postmarked Valentine. And that was all well and good until in the 90s, there was a horrible tragedy. And the owner basically then bulldozed the building when his wife did not make it through a day there. And so now there is a gas station there, you know, but it's kind of a town full of tragedy. It also opened up in 1903. They had the Truxton Canyon Training School, which was for the indigenous communities nearby. It was a day school and boarding school and was in operation until the late 30s. It is now on the National Register of Historic Places. And if you do still want to get something postmarked, you can take it to Kingman, and they use a Valentine postmark. So now is our time where, you know, you get to hear from someone else's voice other than just mine. And the fun of tonight is really getting a chance to take a look back and realize how many amazing guests we've had. It was hard to choose exactly which questions. So I hope you enjoy, and I will be back because we still have more to do. We still have From the Vault. So I hope everyone enjoys. All righty. Well, a little technical difficulty there. Not sure what it was playing earlier. Let's try that again. All right, hold on just a moment. I am apologizing for this. Let's see. I'm going to go back through and reshare that. So hold on just a moment. Okay, so we always do trivia here on Happy Hour. And so there are multiple choice. And always do trivia here on Happy Hour. And so there are multiple choice. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through the questions and answers. We'll take a little bit of an Arizona music break and then come back with the answers of those questions. So people can keep track of, I know, I've got friends who have a special notebook that they use just for trivia for happy hour. I've got one friend that keeps sending me photos of his leg or his arm that he's been writing the answers on. So whatever makes you happy. Luckily edited down, so I don't get to see everything. So, all right. So our first question, what was the restaurant where the servers dressed in costumes of famous characters?
Yeah.
Was it A, Green Gables, B, Bobby McGee's, C, Flanagan's, or Rustler's Roost? Now, I know I've only been to one of those restaurants, Rustler's Roost, but the rest of them I don't know. So I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody answers. So question 2. What other name are okay? I guess I should go back to grammar school because that's not right. Okay, what other name is the Arizona Grand Falls known by? Is it A, Wonka Falls? Is it B, Candy Mountain? C, Donofrio's Drop? Or D, Chocolate Falls?
Mm-hmm.
So while you're trying to think what other name is Arizona Grand Falls known by, question 3. What was the name of the Arizona's Class B 1951 championship basketball team? Was it A, the Mighty Vikings, B, the Superior Cowboys, C, the Bohemian Rhapsodies? I bet they were a bunch of queens.
They were. One of them was an astrophysicist. It's very strange.
Or D, the Mighty Vandals. So, all right. So one of those was the name of Arizona's Class B 1951 championship basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix's San Carlos Hotel, 1928 to present, was the first Arizona hotel built with air conditioning. Is that true or false? What a day to be talking about air conditioning on a day where we really need it. Question 5. What was the first John Wayne movie that was filmed in Arizona? Was it A, Red River, B, The Big Trail, C, She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, or D, Stagecoach? Who was the founder of St. Mary's Food Bank?
Oh gosh, this is a hard
Was
one.
it A, Alice Cooper, B, John Van Hingle, C, George Van Trapp, or D, Alex Albright? So who of those gentlemen do you think founded St. Mary's Food Bank? Question 7. What internationally respected theater company that performs for children and families in Arizona opened its doors back in 1977?
And the options for that, they're all great theater companies. The first one is Great Arizona Puppet Theater. B, Child's Play Theater. C, Valley Youth Theater. Or D, Spotlight Youth Theater.
Question 8. Arizona has a state law that prohibits discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. True or false? Moving on to question 9, coming down the home stretch now. All right, question 9. The Bisbee deportation sent striking miners to which location? A, Columbus, New Mexico. B, Phoenix, Arizona. C, Hermosillo, Sonora, Mexico. Or D, Tombstone, Arizona. So the Bisbee deportation sent those striking miners where? Question 10. What famous Arizona public figure both flew a Blue Angel aircraft and was an active member of the Arizona National Guard? Was it A, Barry Goldwater, B, Mark Kelly, C, Martha McSally, or D, John McCain? All right. So what do you think that is? Well, you're all locking in those final answers. We're going to talk a little bit about Rusty Warren. Now, you might not know the name, but you probably, she made some major changes She is known as the birth mother of the sexual revolution. So she originally came to us from the East Coast as a classically trained pianist, and she was playing at a place called the Pump Room. And then they got into a lawsuit with a place in Chicago, so they decided to just close in the top of the U, and it became the Pump Room. And so she has 15 albums to her credit. Her hit song was called Knockers Up, as well as Bounce Your Boobies were her two big hits. And so she passed away about the age of 91 a couple of years ago, but she idolized Sophie Tucker and actually was able to have lunch with her at the Biltmore, which is a story all onto itself, as well as she did hang out with Joan Rivers, Phyllis Diller, and Toady Fields when they were all working in Vegas. All right. So now who's ready for some answers? All right. So what was the restaurant where the servers dressed in costume of famous characters? Bobby McGee's, really?
Oh my gosh, it was right there by Metro Center, that the 17 and like Dunlap. And it had, the sign was a bathtub with a mannequin of a man in it. And he had a top hat and his foot was up on the other end of the tub and there was a bird on his foot. And it was built like a big house. And all of the servers would be Superman or Wonder Woman or Zorro. And then they had like an Irish character named Patio Furniture. And I just remember as a kid, every year for my birthday's in December, my family used to say, you can pick any restaurant you want to go to, for like your fancy birthday dinner. And Bobby McGee's and Red Lobster were like the fanciest things I could imagine in my life. So if we didn't go to the Red Lobster, we would go to the Bobby McGee. And it was like crappy, prime rib. And the salad bar was a bathtub that was filled with ice and had all the stuff in it. And I remember a lot of the tables had toilets as seats, like they were old toilets that, with the seat down, that's what you would sit on. And it was just like, when you think of TGI Fridays and how they have to like wear their buttons and have their flair and be energetic, it was that times 100. Those people probably hated working there, although it was the cocaine 80s. So maybe, they probably made a fortune. It was always busy, but that was, oh my gosh, as a young person in the 80s, that was the coolest place you could go for dinner.
Wow, it's like, I know like Bill Johnson's Big Apple, they dressed in costume, but no one's ever talked about the servers at Bobby McGee's. I've seen the bathtubs like in thrift stores. It's like, I'll see those, but I didn't know that was what the sign looked like as well.
Yep, bathtubs and toilets. You could get a drink that came in a little porcelain toilet souvenir. Just so crazy. But
so like every teenage boy's humor.
Right, exactly. And this was before Ed DeBevick came to town, and it's a much better version of it with the 50s diner theme, but we're going to have servers that are a little sassy and kind of banter with you. Bobby McGee's was much safer. But again, to a young person who would someday go into show business, oh my gosh, I thought it was the coolest.
And I see Ryan ask, and I don't think Bobby McGee's and Bobby Q's are the same thing.
No,
I don't know who owns Bobby Q's, but
I do want to say that they may be related in some tangential way by the investment group or something like that, because Bobby Q's is in that location now on.
Oh, okay.
Bobby Q's has another location that I know of on like I want to say it's at like 40th Street in Camelback or something over in that part of town.
Okay. All right. So what other name does Arizona Grand Falls go by? Chocolate Falls.
Oh, Chocolate Falls. Sorry, this was me.
I was like, hello, is this on? Is this
sorry,
on?
I was looking at the pictures. So I absolutely love this. This is a very hidden spot. Like I said, it's starting to gain a lot of more traction on social media, though. I've noticed a couple of videos here and there, but I first went, I want to say maybe a good 3 years ago. And when I say this thing is out of the way, it's out of the way. It's on tribal land. You're going to drive a couple of sketchy roads. I've seen a lot of ATVers around there. It's a very popular ATV.
That makes sense.
Yes, but it's doable by car. Don't let them fool you. It is doable by car. And it's a nice little hike. I included 2 pictures there. So one at the top of the falls and one at the bottom of the falls. Just because
Okay.
you just can't. So the picture to the right, I don't know if you're seeing the screen that I see, is at the top, and you can actually see it come down and see it pour over and just the general majesty of it. And then the picture at the top right is actually down into the falls. So it is very cool, but very, very muddy. Don't wear clothes you like. You're going to find mud in places you didn't know they were there. And the best time to go is after the rain. The falls are really spectacular. And just, I don't know. I just feel like I'm in like Willy Wonka's chocolate falls with his chocolate river and his factory. So,
and that's why Wonka was one of the options.
Yes.
The reason. And so that's why we're enjoying this lovely dark chocolate wine.
After all, pure imagination, right?
There's a great, by the way, there's a great, if you love history, there's a great sports museum in Miami that is built in the former gymnasium.
Oh, actually, I've been there.
Yeah, of the high school.
Of the high school, right? I was there for an event, and it's like, and there it is.
Yeah, high school got torn down. You go in this gymnasium, half of it is filled with books, the other half is a sports museum, and they have like beautiful memorabilia and cool stuff. And yeah, it's cool. It's worth stopping in if you're in that area.
And you might wonder, why do they have all that? And that brings up this next question. What was the name of Arizona's Class B 1951 championship basketball team?
The Mighty Vandals. The name of the team and the name of my play, because it couldn't be any other name. I couldn't give the play any other name. Right? This title writes itself. You know, great story. Not just because this is why I like the story. This has a lot to do with the kind of work I do as a playwright. Why I like the story was not just because they were a great basketball team. You know, that's good. Right? They were undefeated, scoring like more than 100 points a game for a high school team towards the end of that season. They were just astounding. But the real reason I wrote it was because it was 1951, 3 years before Brown versus Board. You know, it's my math. 14 years before 13 years before the U.S. Civil Rights Act, etc. And this was a predominantly Mexican American, Mexican, Slovak immigrant basketball team that went undefeated. But they lived kind of dual lives, because on the court they were superstars. You know, everybody loves a winner, right? So, you know, all the white people loved that they were winning, right? But then they come off the court, they went back to second class citizenship, right? And went to segregated neighborhoods and couldn't date, you know, the white cheerleaders and, you know, all of the world of 1951 rural Arizona and segregation. You know, the guy that was the star of the team, who just turned 90 years old, and I went to his birthday party. It was an incredible thing. I went to his birthday party, but that guy, his name was Fito Trujillo, went off to college, like several of the players, went off to college, got a degree, came back, wanted to become an accountant at the mining company there that kind of ran the town, and they wouldn't hire him as an accountant. They wouldn't hire him in the offices because he was Mexican. They said, you know, sorry, you can work down in the pit, but you can't, you know, be an accountant. Right. And he ended up getting the last laugh because he went from that and eventually started his own business and then became a county supervisor and was extremely successful. And so it may have been the best thing, you know, ultimately to happen to him. But that was the town. And I loved writing about the contrast between their world on the court and off the court. You know, it was kind of a Mexican American versus a version of Hoosiers. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. Yeah, except
I grew up like 5 minutes away from the town where Hoosiers was that basketball team.
So now take Hoosiers and just add a civil rights spin to it, and replace Dennis Hopper with, no, I don't know who replaced Dennis Hopper. You can't replace Dennis Hopper. If I ever made a movie about this, I would still want Dennis Hopper in this movie. You know, just
right.
He makes every movie better, but.
Yeah, no, I mean, he does make everything better. But but I think that's so interesting when you kind of, they were celebrities, but still
Superstars for that time.
superstars, but then it's kind of held to this completely other standard once they got off the court.
Yeah, and to this day, you meet somebody from that town who's anywhere close to like children of the people who were ball players. It's like it's the single most amazing thing that's ever happened to that. It's like Elvis came to town and had Elizabeth Taylor on his arm, and they got drunk, and people are still telling stories about how they partied with them at a bar. It's just like they have not. This is like the moment, right? The shining moment. But they have that museum because they actually had like a long tradition of great sports teams. So that
right.
Museum,
I remember because it wasn't just about that one team. I mean, there were all these athletes.
There's a lot of other stuff that went on. In fact, at the 90th birthday party for Fito Trujillo, I met Ed Long, who's 96, who was the center on the 1944 or 46 basketball team. So it's a long tradition.
So then, okay, so quick. So any reason why they chose the name the Vandals? I mean, because you've got the criminals over in Yuma, and it's just so funny that you've got the criminals versus the Vandals.
Vikings. Vandals are Vikings, weren't they? I mean, weren't they like some form of Viking or something?
So I mean, it's like
they were Nordic, right? They were Nordic. I don't know who picked the name. No one knows where mascot names come from.
It indeed just that. What is it? Scottsdale Community College, the Artichokes.
Yeah.
All right, and the San Carlos Hotel was the first hotel built with air conditioning. And that is true.
Yes. And again, a note on that. So we added conditioned air that was built with air conditioning. And that hotel was built on the site of the old grade school. So the first generation of my family to be born here, because we came from Germany, went to school at that grade school, and then it got knocked down, and they built the San Carlos. So if you go down to the basement, there's all kinds of notations and stuff in the basement in reference to it being the grade school. Robert Malekian and I have known each other over the years. And interestingly enough, we grew up in the same neighborhood. We went to the same high school, not at the same time. Our houses were back to back.
Wow.
Cowback Mountain. And we both are from families that owned competing hotels.
That is funny.
And he got into historical preservation only because they knocked down our hotel.
I didn't realize that's what got him into preservation.
That's what got him fighting mad, if you will, about saving all of our buildings. And before I forget it, if he's watching, I just want to put a shout out to Robert. To say hi, because he's a dear guy, and and so is his dad. His dad is a piece of history, American history.
And indeed, yes, the general.
But I just wanted to say that, Robert's a great guy. He's put out a lot of books. He was taking pictures of stuff long before, I got on the, bandwagon. But there's a lot of people out there that are in the historical preservation, and thank God, because we'd have a far lot less than we have now, which is not enough.
Right. No, I mean, and I think it's interesting because it's like you now have, and I think we've reached a bit of a tipping point where you now have developers that are not necessarily looking to just knock down and build, but are actually looking at those old structures and thinking, okay, well, it's better than going to a landfill, and they're better built than what we would be building now. So you've got some homes that are actually sticking around because people think that that's a valuable, or that sense of scale, or that sense of design that's inherent in those buildings because of when they were built.
Well, yeah, and I'm not a politician. I mean, not yet. And I want this to be fun and interesting. So, but this whole topic, it skirts on the edge of politics. And so, I don't want to get into that. I want to keep this interesting and fun.
Right.
But I will say that this topic, it's very hard to not go to the other side because they're so intertwined. I will tell the viewing audience that most of the city councils in this county, in the state, certainly this county, half of them were comprised of people who aren't from here. Now, that doesn't make those people bad, but that certainly in my lifetime I've seen has played into. It's very easy to give in to somebody at the podium who wants to come in here and develop a whole block. And in order to do that, that block's got to go. And those people are like, I didn't grow up here. I have no childhood memories of that entire block, you know? And, you know, and then you see that time and time again, you know? So it's a dilemma.
Right. It's always a dilemma. And that's one of the things, that's the reason why I do this. I mean, I'm not from here, but there are just so many stories that we need people to be aware of.
No, but you know,
And
what's interesting is you're not, but yet you have more enthusiasm than your equal who's sitting in a voted or appointed position,
right,
who should have that same enthusiasm and doesn't.
Right.
You know, who just wants to whack the gavel and be on to the next piece of paper in front of them. So I don't know, but I'm just saying. So.
Indeed. Well, it's always, I mean, there's a handful of us that are out there always debating, okay, this building, it's like, what's going to happen to it? Let's put up a fight for it. And so, but but there's now starting to be almost a tipping point where people have realized that we're losing too much and that we've lost too much. And so now they think there's more of an effort to try and save things. So it's not quite as difficult as it was.
Yeah.
All right. What was the first John Wayne movie filmed in Arizona?
The Big Trail. You know, John Wayne was in just over 250 films. I think 70 of them were around more the low budget type of films, but then he just took off. And that was one of his first starting movies, huh, Jim, that got him to fall in love with it. When was that?
I think it was in 29, 29?
30, yeah.
30, was in the 1930s, 1930.
Oh, yes, 1930.
So he started off as an extra and, a B actor in the 20s. And then in 1930, he got his first big break and they filmed The Big Trail, which was filmed around Yuma, Arizona, a lot of it. And then he thought he was a star. And then the Depression was full blown. And he took a lot of B actor, B roles in B movies. And so throughout the whole Depression, he never starred in another big film. He was in a lot of little stuff. He was like even singing Sandy for a while. And it wasn't until a full decade later that he got his next starring role, which was Stagecoach. And from then on, he was just a superstar. But he was 10 years after his first hit until he actually made it.
And you know, so many people don't realize that that's really a phenomenal success story, because it took him 10 years. You know, he had that one bite of success, and then for 10 years he kind of struggled through it until it happened again. He just didn't give up.
See, I guess I didn't realize that. I thought he just started out small and then kind of built to that suit. That's really cool. And he filmed so much here in Arizona.
Yes, a lot of movies here in Arizona.
All right. So who was the founder of St. Mary's Food Bank?
You know, I had A on my... It's not Alice Cooper. It's John Van Zee. Yeah, I used to work at St. Mary's Food Bank, and that was like one of the funnest jobs, talking about his story. Like he was a member of the St. Mary's Parish, the Basilica downtown, and he came up with this idea. You know, food. He's considered the father of food banking. So the very first food bank in the whole wide world started here in Phoenix, Arizona, and you know, he started it because he noticed that he would go to grocery stores and he would notice that in the dumpsters there was like this good food, right? That was just getting tossed. And the reason it was getting tossed was because us as consumers wouldn't buy it because they had some type of defect, like the bread was squished. If a bread's squished, you're not going to buy it. If there's a dented can, well, you're not going to buy the dented can. You're going to buy the nice can. There's a dozen of eggs. There's one cracked egg. You're not going to buy those dozen of eggs. So they end up in the dumpster. So the way you can help a food bank is if you crack an egg, dent a can, and squish some bread. They would appreciate it. I'm kidding, but I'm kidding.
Not that we're suggesting folks go out and do that.
I'm kidding. You didn't hear me.
But if you do, wear big dark glasses before you do that.
Yeah.
There's video cameras on everything. So
yeah, so he thought of this idea of taking a truck and rescuing that food, right? And that's one of the biggest ways St. Mary's gets food is by that food rescue program. And he went to St. Mary's Basilica, told them the idea. They gave him a little bit of money and that bakery.
So what internationally respected theater company that is right here performing for children and families opened its doors back in 1977?
That theater company is Child's Play Theater. It was founded by David Sarr in 1977 in Tempe, Arizona. And since then, they've continued to perform for children and their families. And they really do an incredible job of making the theater accessible to young audiences. A lot of times, theater is able to sort of impart lessons that you can't get any other way. Theater is able to open up one's ability to empathize and to think creatively and critically about issues. And so the fact that Child's Play does that for our community members is also beautiful. Also on their board. So it's, I guess I
didn't realize you're on their board as well. Cause I mean, it's like when I was in libraries, we actually did some work with them and helping them get stories to actually take into schools.
Yeah.
So that it's like kids get that experience of seeing live theater.
Exactly.
And not just watching TV, but actually seeing it live. And again, and you're right. And those stories that can be so important and point out things in their lives that you couldn't just say, here this is, but being able to put it in a play so they can see it through.
That's right. They do an amazing job. They perform all over Arizona. They have touring shows, and it's really cool. A long time ago, in 2008, I actually did a show with the Child's Play Theater. It was called A Little Bit of Water, and it was about the importance of water conservation here in Arizona, which continues to be an issue.
I was going to say we should bring that show back, and for adults as well, it sounds like.
Yes, it was written by their now artistic director, Dwayne Hartford, and it was directed by Anthony Ranfola, who is now in San Antonio for running a theater company down there. But Child's Play does a lot for our community. They just closed a wonderful run of the Reindeer Show at the Herberger Theater, and they've got a couple more shows. So I would encourage individuals to look into Child's Play Theater. If you've got young ones, take them to the theater so that they can open up their imaginations and see themselves on those characters on stage.
Exactly. And I love that they do stage performance as well as going into schools. So yes. I love they kind of hit the children everywhere they can with that experience of theater. Question 8. Arizona has a state law that prohibits discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity.
That is a big, loud, resounding false. We do not have a state law that protects the LGBTQ community. It is a really unfortunate aspect of our great state that our legislature has not taken the step to expand its non-discrimination law to include sexual orientation and gender identity. That is something that has been attempted by way of bills having been submitted to the legislature in recent years. And in more recently than not, it has actually been an effort that has been bipartisan by both Democrats and Republicans. Unfortunately, however, that effort has still not made its way into law. And so it's an unfortunate cloud on our great state. Hopefully it will be something that changes soon. We can only be hopeful. There's a lot of work that has to be done, however, to make that happen.
Indeed, there is. All right. So question 9, the city of Scottsdale has enacted an ordinance that protects people who are gay or transgender from discrimination.
That is a resounding true, and I'm so proud to say that about my hometown, Scottsdale. That is an expansion of their non-discrimination ordinance that occurred last year in April of 2021. And so this was the result of years of hard work that had been started probably in large part by one community, Angela Huey, and a lot of our colleagues who have worked with Angela over the years. The biggest push that I'm aware of for this effort was back in 2015. It had a lot of momentum, but unfortunately stalled and was put on the back burner by the city of Scottsdale. It sat there where it languished for several years. And fortunately, I was able to become the LGBTQ liaison in 2017 and begin trying to persuade leaders at the city that this was something that should be reviewed. The city leaders decided, particularly under the leadership of the new mayor, David Ortega, that this was a priority they wanted to pursue when they came into office in 2021. In the lead up, one community, Angela Huey, many of us were persuading them or trying to advocate that this was something the city should do. One of the most significant factors in all of this, though, came from the Scottsdale Human Relations Commission, which is a group of volunteers who are appointed by the city to serve for the purpose of reviewing issues of human relations and advising the city council on those issues. In the lead up to the 2021 enactment or expansion of Scottsdale's ordinance, the Human Relations Commission, under the leadership of Janice Shimakubo, set out to make it a point that Scottsdale's non-discrimination ordinance be specifically expanded to protect people who are gay or transgender, and do so in all areas of public accommodation, housing, and employment. And the wonderful individuals on the Scottsdale Human Relations Commission who took that on worked it diligently and with diplomacy and wisdom and patience, as well as tenacity. And in their effort, supported by one community, Angela Huey, myself, and many others, the effort was deemed by the Scottsdale City Council, including the mayor, to be a priority and was enacted by unanimous vote in April of last year. And so today we enjoy in Scottsdale LGBTQ non-discrimination protection. And I'm so thrilled about my hometown having done that.
All right. The Bisbee deportation striking minors where?
So Columbus, New Mexico. So really briefly, the Bisbee deportation is one of the most, I think, important events that happened in Arizona. We about 1,200 striking minors were rounded up one morning. There was a roundup right outside of our library. Rounded up, they were marched about 3 miles over to our ball field, which is in our Warren district. And they were loaded up on train cars, and they were literally just shipped to Columbus, New Mexico, dropped off, and left to fend for themselves. There is the picture of part of the roundup going on, and they were rounded up by gunpoint. There was, they didn't have a choice, and they were, some of them were pulled out of their homes. This was a really important day in labor history. Here's them being marched through the hills of Bisbee. There's the train cars. There was a really great documentary made for the anniversary of the deportation there, that Bisbee 17. If you haven't seen that, it kind of blends modern day with the past, and a really interesting way to tell the story. And we at the library worked with this film team. We had a whole summer of programming on specifically the deportation and some other things that were going on at that time, including the Mexican Revolution, that just all kind of played together. And then, of course, Robert Houston's Bisbee 17 is a fictionalized version of the event. And then a new book that just came out last year, another book on the Bisbee deportation. Yeah.
All right. How long did it take the Naval Air Force facility at Litchfield Park to close?
Nearly 5 years, believe it or not. It was actually just after Christmas in 1963. The Pentagon sent word down. It's like, we're going to put all aircraft, all military aircraft assets that'll be in storage or being prepared for scrap. We're going to put them in one place. And that's still to this day going on at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson, the boneyard, right? So the Navy had to essentially liquidate. They stopped bringing aircraft in largely around 1963, but they had to liquidate what was on site. And again, they're carrying, in 1963, when this came down, I have an article from one of the fleet magazines, and it said there's over 2,300 aircraft on site. This was like of June of 63, right? And it was helicopters, jets, stuff from World War II. They said there were over 38 types of airframes in storage on the field, right? They had to hire, by some reports, as many as 800 to 1,000 people to get this kind of mammoth task done, as then they slowly drew down the inventory. So the numbers shook out like this until 68, when they finally got everything gone. They actually were able to fly 615 airplanes down. 1,000 airplanes were just scrapped. And to this day, if you go to MC-85 and Estrella Parkway, on the northeast corner, there's a big metal recycling plant. The original 4 or 5 smelters from the base are still there. That big pile of slag metal was started by the naval base. Airplanes are the foundation of that scrapyard.
Wow.
And they were actually, they had 112 airplanes that they couldn't fly, but if you put them on a 45-degree angle on a flatbed truck, you could truck them down the interstate. So they actually trucked 112 of these things down to Davis-Monthan. And that last slide, you had a picture of about 6 or so guys standing around a cake. That was the last aircraft to be on the Navy rolls to leave the airport. So they baked it a cake, and that was, sadly, for those 6 gentlemen, most of them had worked there for over 20 years. That was their last day of work. That's a pretty, after that, the Navy turned the keys over to the city of Phoenix, and Naval Air Facility, the Litchfield Park, became Phoenix Goodyear Airport. That was the end of Navy days at Goodyear.
Wow. Now, as we so I always like to ask people how they did. I mean, Sarah already said she got 0 out of 10. I think I probably did about as well as that. I mean, and so I always like to say, it's not how well you did, but just all these stories from so many amazing people. I mean, it was like, it's like hearing Ryan's voice. I'm like, oh yeah, he had mentioned that we could maybe do a tour of the Chandler Airport. So now I've got to hit him up and ask him about that, because what fun would that be? Because it's all, well, and Anita, look at that. You got 10 out of 10. So, but it was so much fun just to hear from those folks again and to hear their stories. So, all right. So now for From the Vault. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the image behind me. And so it is what was called Montgomery Stadium. That was around from 27 to, I think, into the 80s. It was still standing. It was demolished, but it was the first stadium for Arizona. And one thing I think that was really cool about this is not only was it home to the Mask of Yellow Moon, but it was also home to the very first bowl game that ran from the mid 40s through into the 50s. And oh my gosh, I mean, this stadium could have held 23,000 people. So it was a huge stadium. And as time went on, it started getting worse. Oh my gosh. And, and from the Mask of the Yellow Moon to the Salad Bowl, there were all these parades. And so with the Salad Bowl, you would have a Salad Bowl float with the queen of the Salad Bowl riding in her very own salad bowl with her spoon and fork to serve from. So, I have a feeling, I'm surprised no one has decided to do something like that for this, just because a marketing gimmick. Hey, the world's largest salad. So, but it was, you can see the location for it was right just basically like 8th Street and Polk is where that was. And and what a great name, the Salad Bowl. And so, this is why I always say you should share, because I know it's like some of you may have heard some of these stories before, but I think it was so amazing just to hear some of them again, and so timely. I always love going back and doing these type of shows. It takes me forever to put them together, just because it's like, oh, do I choose that one? Do I choose that? I mean, there are so many amazing guests. So thank you all so much for indulging. And next week we have Madame Askew. So Madame Askew will be joining us from, as far as I know, Tucson, possibly somewhere else. And so she is actually going to be our guest for Hats and High Tea in the Cemetery coming up later this month. So you get to hear from Madame Askew as she talks about a variety of things. I know she's big into kind of the steampunk culture. So that's going to be a really fun show with some great trivia as well. And so I always love to hear from you all. So that's why I say, please share stories, questions, comments, whatever. It's all good. And again, I love to give a shout out to Chris and Cole, who created that cool video, as well as PJ for his selection of beverages of the evening. So as we say goodnight, I'm going to basically we did a variety of different videos that were part of Local Buzz to kind of say, hey, if you're here for the Super Bowl, here are things you can do. And so if you're down there for the NFL experience, stop by the Arizona Center and you'll see why you might want to do just that. Hey, Local Buzz, Marshall Shore, the hip historian here. And as you can see, we are here with the letters of Super Bowl, which is coming up right around the corner. And we're going to be bringing you all kinds of cool things that you can do around the valley if you are here before, during, or after the game. Arizona Center, that's where we're at. 3rd Street and Van Buren for AZ Shop Like a Local.
where there are 15 local vendors strung throughout the Arizona Center. You have to go into some of the shops to see what's going on in there. Let's take a look.